Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Lori.
The time is now 9 o'clock, and man, do I have a action-packed 120 minutes of stuff for you today. So this election is a little different than what you're used to, and I'm not sure if I'm meeting any of you for the first time. If I'm meeting you for the first time, will you raise your hand? Oh, great. Oh, Deb, you are. She sells me makeup to look pretty. Okay. So I'm Lori Stotler. I'm the city clerk treasurer going on my first year, but I've got 15 years in elections between the city of Beloit and Rock County. For those of you that are watching on video this training, I have added some accountability features. I'm sure you're all really excited about that. Throughout this video, you're going to have to answer these 3 questions and email me in order to get credit for your training. So the 3 questions today will be: what did Sergeant Rob Perkins of the Janesville Police Department train us on? What are the 2 primary errors we will see voters make at this election? And what's going to take 30 to 45 minutes to do at the end of the night after the polls close? That might be a hint that we're in for a long night. So I have a great team, so if I can't get to you, please don't hesitate to get to any of my staff. I've got Darnisha. Darnisha was here for 6 years, went to the city of Evansville to expand her training, and now she's back, and I'm so glad. Many of you have worked with Mary in the office and Liz. They're both very, very versed in elections. And Heather, Kim, Ann, Sue, Jody, and Kim on the bottom, I am bringing them along, and they will soon be right up to speed with us. So that's 755-3070 is a number you can call at any time. If you're going to absentee vote after this training today, expect to stand in line. I have 2 staff members down there, but it does take a little bit. If that's your wish, just know that it might take a while to process you, so thanks in advance for your patience. So this is the agenda today, so you can kind of get a feel on where we're going, and then I'm going to switch PowerPoints. But I am so happy that we have Sergeant Rob Perkins of the Janesville Police Department with us. He has gone through a ton of training on behavior modification through non-escalation and de-escalation, and he's going to take hours, maybe weeks worth of training and pop it right into your heads in 20 minutes. So without further ado, I'm going to switch out the PowerPoint and get Rob up here. You do have a handout. One is a PowerPoint and the other are takeaway notes. No need to follow along with those. He's going to be exciting enough up front. Sergeant Perkins, it's all yours.
Thank you, Lori. Oh, wow. Hey, wow. I don't normally get applause when I enter a room, so I really appreciate it. While Lori switches this out, thanks for being here today. I really appreciate it, and thanks to Lori for inviting us over to do this. I'm Rob Perkins. I've been with the police department here in Janesville for about 14 years. I am not from Janesville. They offered me a job 14 years ago, and I said, I'm coming. All right, so that was the first job out of college is where I took, and this is now where I'm at. So we like it. We live in Milton, but that's where we're at. So what we want to talk about today, we're kind of going to feed you like you're drinking from a fire hose here. All right, so I'm glad we have the PowerPoint printed out for you, and you can reference some of that back. What this is a company out of Milwaukee. It's actually developed by a person named Gary Klugowitz, who was a Milwaukee County deputy for many, many years. He took and he wrote actually what the state of Wisconsin trains all police officers, any new recruit that goes through their academy, and he trains them in, it's called professional communication, and kind of how that looks. What he did when he retired is he took that curriculum, kind of rebranded it, and came up with a way that we can now teach anybody that thing. So he still teaches law enforcement. The company's called Whistleblower, but he teaches law enforcement, healthcare workers, schools, other large corporations that they'll come in and they'll actually do this for the company. So what we're really looking at is conflict management and how to de-escalate, but also how to non-escalate too. And I want you to keep that as a key word today too, is non-escalation versus de-escalation. How do we not get people more and more amped up just through our own means that we may not even know that we're doing, right? So this is, the condensed version of this is a 4-hour workshop. We're going to give it to you in 20 minutes today, okay? So bear with me. But conflict management, right? Who's dealt with it in the polls, right? So I've learned a little bit about polls. So who are my greeters in here? Any greeters? Maybe you don't have your assignments yet. You don't have your assignments yet? You do? So we have greeters, check-in, ballot takers, ballot tables, all these things. And that's really the first part of this is going to be where this is going to fall, because you're the ones dealing with the front people on this, right? So who's heard of airplane crashes? Right? Why do we hear about airplane crashes?
Infrequent.
They're infrequent, right? But also why? They look bad. They're terrible, right? They don't happen that often, but just the horrificness of it, right? Mm-hmm. So I want you to, how would that apply to a poll or elections? People are angry, right? And what I want you to think of, everybody has cameras nowadays, right? Mm-hmm. What does it look like when you are on camera, right? If you had to interact with somebody and somebody recorded that, what did that look like?
Not good.
Well, that's what we want to hope to try to avoid, right? So in my line of work, we're always on camera, right? Everybody's got cell phones. We record ourselves now because we all carry cameras with us. Everything we do is on camera, right? So what does that look like when that hits the news? When we have, everyone's seen that on the news, when you see, law enforcement did this, right? There's a lot of bad news with that. George Floyd, obviously how that looked, okay? So normally we would go around and we'd tell our airplane crash stories, and this sometimes gets really funny because people come up with some really funny ones, and even we have a good laugh about it. But it's really, we want to try to avoid our airplane crash, all right? So, and that's what we're going to kind of give you today is how to avoid our airplane crashes on things, okay? So we can't avoid conflict, right? It's out in the world. It's going to be what we deal with all the time, but we can manage it, all right? So treating people with dignity, right? Everybody wants to be treated with dignity. Think of the golden rule. What's the golden rule? Right? What's that?
He who has the golden rule.
Well, right. We treat others as we would like to be treated, right? So even if we disagree with them, we still want to treat them with dignity on this, right? It's our inherent value as human beings. So what we want to kind of move on to is what we call the universal greeting. So I want you to put yourself in the elections. You're in your poll, and someone comes up to you. Okay, what do they want to know?
I want to know where to go.
Well, even before that.
I'm in the right spot.
And you're in the right spot. They have all these questions, right? But who are they talking to? Right? Who are we? Right? So these 4 great American questions. Who are we? What gives you the authority? Why are you here? And then what's in it for me? Okay? So if I were to introduce myself, I told you this morning, I'm Rob Perkins. That's my name. I work for the Janesville Police Department. And what does that tell you about me?
Your authority.
There's some authority there, right? I'm here to present to you some conflict management resolutions today. And we're going to work through on how to do that. Right? Does that answer all these 4 questions?
Yeah.
Right. So think about that as we go kind of through the elections and things. I'm Rob. I work here at the elections. What can I help you with today? Right? So what's in it for me? We work through that, and we'll kind of work through how we're going to choreograph our response. That's another one we talked about, looking good on camera and improve for future interactions as well. All right? So our conflict triggers. Does anyone have something that just sets them off? What do you have that just sets you off?
Screaming.
Just screaming.
Raising their voice.
Okay. Raising your voice. What else?
I want to be a girl.
Calling you a girl. Okay. Perfect one.
Should be flattered.
What do you?
When someone asks me if their ballot is going to count.
Okay. How many times do we get asked that question during the time?
Once every
5
years, maybe.
5 minutes sometimes, right? Okay. So we talk about these, they can be universal. So we've had, does my ballot get a count? Kind of a universal one, right? And then you said, calling me a girl, right? That's a personal one, right? That's personal to me. So how are we going to deal with these? All right? What we're going to do is address them, though, okay? And realize that bothers me, okay? We're going to name them, so we could call that one girl, ballot, obscenity, right? Give them a name, because once we've taken them and we've identified them, it goes in our brain that, okay, that bothers me, so when I hear that, here's my response to it, all right? So we can't show emotion during that, right? We're not going to escalate that because they've done something to us. But yes, we agree it bothers us, so we're going to define it, and it's going to be our internal warning system for that, right? So think about going back to who we represent. How is that going to look on camera if we blow up on this person for calling me a girl or calling me honey? I could see that one bothering people too, right? Is my ballot going to count, right? I've been asked that 16 times today, right? But what would that look like if we lost it, and what would that look like on camera? Could that possibly be an airplane crash for us? Okay? So put yourself in their shoes and just show some empathy, right? They're coming in maybe for the first time in a while and working through this. And that's their first interaction. It's just a joke to try to lighten the mood because maybe they're a little nervous. Okay? So just think that. Just some phrases that we talked about. People yelling, people screaming, people just upset. So on the right or the left-hand side here, you're going to see some phrases. How does that sound if we say that versus the alternate here on the right-hand side? Hey, just calm down for me. Right? Hey, it's going to be all right. What's the trouble? What can I help you with? Right? I don't think my ballot's going to count. I can assure you that your ballot will count. We're going to make sure that happens today for you, right? Hey, you, come here. Versus, excuse me, can I just talk to you for a minute? The difference of how those are the rules, right? Can that apply to everyone in here? Right? Well, sorry, those are the rules. You got to do this, right? Can you just work with me here? What's your problem? You wouldn't understand, right? Versus, let me try to explain this to you. Okay? You people is a very, very negative one, right? Right? We get that all the time. You people, right? And it's like, ooh, very passive aggressive, yes. So think about these alternate ways that we can say these that are a lot less non-escalation that are going to come off that way. All right? So we have a kind of a fun tactic here, all right? And it's cornier than you can ever believe, all right? And you're going to believe, I can't believe I actually I heard about this today, all right? But thinking going on air, and you can use this at the very beginning of the day. You can use this as someone, I'm going to screw up the phrases here. Better look. Lori told me before I came over. The chief inspectors, kind of the ones that deal with very problematic people. Maybe get called over, hey, can you deal with this person? They have some issues, right? Okay. So you get called over to help with this problematic person. And we're going to be going on air now. We're going live on our TV show. This could be recorded, right? Who knows who's going to record this, right? So we have what we call the showtime tactic, all right? So one thing that you're going to do, first thing, breathe in, breathe out. Big breath in, big breath out. It's going to help us relax. We're going to stack our blocks. If we walk over and we're kind of hunched over, is that going to show something to the person that we're going to deal with, right? So we want our head over our shoulders, shoulders over our hips, hips over our feet, okay? We're going to put on our appropriate face, big smile, right? And use the appropriate self-talk. I can do this. I got this. And we're going to step on stage. But one thing before we step on stage, we're going to say something to ourselves. Does anyone want to guess what that is? We're going to go, showtime. Right? So it's a very positive self-talk. I have this, all right? And that's a great way of not moving into starting off with a poor encounter, okay? So if we could think to ourselves, how much time could we save on if we use non-escalations versus working on de-escalation after the contact has already escalated, right? If we don't ever say anything that's going to escalate them, then we never have to bring it back down, right? So our universal greeting. We kind of talked about this with the 4 universal questions, 4 great American questions. So the appropriate greeting. Hi, I'm Rob Perkins today. I'm here to talk about VDI. What can I help you with today? Right? I hear you have some concerns about how the elections are going. What are your concerns and how may I address them? Okay? Start out with your name and your affiliation. I work here at the polls. I understand that you have some concerns. How may I help? How may I assist you with those today? Right? In the class, we normally get up and practice this with each other, and it's kind of fun. So, but for sake of time. So it looked like this. Good morning. I'm Rob Perkins. I'm a guest in room 204. The reason that I'm contacting you is that at 4 a.m. and wanted to get a cup of coffee. I noticed there's no coffee machine in the room. Is there somewhere in the hotel that I can get a cup of coffee? How does that sound versus, hey, where's your coffee maker at? Right? Non-escalation versus de-escalation. Okay? So redirections. So these are actually taken from the north side of Janesville, where all the new construction is.
On Highway 26.
Yeah. Right? So when we talk about redirections, these are things that people are going to say to us that they're trying to push our buttons, right? My vote's not going to count. We're starting to hit these conflict triggers that we talked about earlier, right? So how do we redirect them to get them back to what we want to do, all right? I understand I'd probably feel the same way, but if I were in your shoes, nevertheless, I have a job to do here. Is there something that I did to make you mad? If I did something wrong, I apologize if I did something wrong, but I have to ask you not to swear at me, right? So we redirect them, right? Bring it back to where we wanted it to go. I don't understand why I have to give you my ID I've registered already, right? I understand that, but we do have to make sure that everybody shows their ID at the polls. That is currently the law. So if you have your ID with you, if I can just see it now, we can get you registered and we can get you into the polls so you can vote, right? So when we're dealing with somebody that's like, I am not doing that, someone give me an example of something that happens in the polls that they just won't do. What was that? Not, so they have to, so you can see they're identifying with their face? Okay. So one thing that we do is we really want to give them options. In the persuasion sequence, we want to make sure that they kind of choose, okay? So make this real simple. Who has children in here? Who's raised children, grandchildren, right? So I have 3, 6, 4, and 3, all right? So I use this all the time. So they want a snack. I said, okay, you can have a snack. I want this. I want a candy bar for my snack. Well, listen, we can't have a candy bar. It's almost dinner time. But I tell you what, we can either have some graham crackers or we can have an apple, right? I'll let you pick. I want a candy bar. Well, a candy bar is not an option. Let me have you pick one of these other choices, right? All right, I'll have an apple, right? Do they feel like they've got to choose and make that decision? Right, the same thing. So if they're in a poll and they have a mask, we want to explain, hey, we have to verify that you are who you are saying. And with the mask, it's very hard to do that. If you can just take your mask down for me, I can verify that real quickly. There's nobody else around, and we can get you registered.
Or I could step back if you'd like, or feel free to step back a page, something like that.
So we're giving them the positive things that we want them to do, right? If you don't, we can't allow you to vote because we can't verify who you are, and with the laws and everything, then we would have to ask you to leave, and we may have to get the police involved, and we don't want to do that today. We really want to make sure you can exercise your constitutional right to vote. So if you could just pull your mask down real quick for me, I can verify who you are, and we can get you registered to vote. Okay? So,
Can you explain, I'm sorry you have to, we have to see your face, but well, that's could lead to escalating them getting upset?
not, you're explaining them what you want them to do. So you're giving them the positive option that if
By
we...
giving them the option, it helps avoid the
Yes,
accident? Okay.
yes. So if we're giving them the positive option and a negative option, and really I like to really overemphasize the negative option because then it really makes them choose the positive one. But then they go, okay, fine, I don't want to do that negative thing. I'll just take my mask down and we can verify and move them on. But we're allowing them to reconsider that and work with us and then take the appropriate one. All right? So it would look something like this. Explain the rule, policy, or law. Explain why we have that law, and then present these options to them, the positive, the negative, put an emphasis on the positive, and then I'll allow them to make that choice, right? Closure. So why is closure so important during these things?
They felt that they've been dealt with correctly.
Right. That's what they're going to remember. Sure, I'm sorry. It's going to be what they remember. All right? So, I believe it's on it. So one thing is we treat people like ladies and gentlemen, not necessarily because they are, but because we are. Right? We are the professionals in this realm, so that's how we're going to treat people. So the closure, people are going to remember the first part and the last part. You can completely screw up the whole middle, but as long as they remember that last part, they're going to go, wow, that was a good interaction. I'm going to go back and vote in November, right? Okay? So I think that gets us, I was like 22 minutes. So does that, and I hope a lot of you are realizing this seems a lot like common sense and just treating people nicely, right? That's really what this is. That's the whole realm of conflict resolution. Yes?
You can't handle someone who, because this is, you have to choose a party to vote, you can't mix and match. But I got to do that last time.
Sure. Okay.
I got a screen for that, Rob.
Okay.
We're going to practice this in our training today.
Perfect. Okay. And I think try to look at some of the tactics we talked about with the persuasion sequence and the redirection on how to use those techniques in order. And I think Lori's probably the one that's going to offer you some more of the election knowledge side of things.
De-escalation type thing, because they're adamant that they did it last time.
Correct. So
Would anybody like to role play that with me?
Go ahead.
So my name is Lori Stotler, and I'm the city clerk treasurer for the city. Elections are really important to me too. So what is your concern today?
Well, for the primary, it's, you have to choose a party, but party you can't mix and match. You can vote some Republican and some Democrat or whatever.
So as the voter, you would be suggesting that you were always able to cross party lines on this election, and that you, the workers, are just applying new rules to them, right?
Right. I've always voted mix and match as a
Right.
primary before.
So I'm gonna arm you with some of those tools, and that's my job in this training, is to arm you with some of these techniques and statements that you can take with you. And one of them that I have, so this is also another de-escalation. I'll come back to it. This is a de-escalation. I got all kinds of them in here. All right, but here is your de-escalation comments to help with this, right? So in the even years, we've always had a partisan primary. I will remind you that this particular election has been in place since 1915, and it's always been this way. You might be thinking about that straight party ticket that we used to have that they got rid of in 2011, but there's still a party preference option on your ballot. It's just really important that when you pick a party in this ballot, on this ballot, that you vote for candidates only in that party. Does that help? Okay. So in this election, maybe you remember doing this years ago when we didn't have all this equipment up here, which could use some de-escalation. When we didn't have all of this equipment up here and we just did paper ballots, you might remember that we had a Republican ballot, a Democrat ballot, a Constitution ballot, and maybe a Green Party ballot. We would staple them all together, and when you would come into the polls, the poll worker would say, "What party are you from?" And you would tell them, and then we would give you that one and discard the other three. Do you remember that? Okay. Well, so I've explained to you everything that I can explain to you on this ballot, and you know I'm sorry that we're really not seeing eye to eye, but my job is to make sure that your ballot counts and that everybody that you vote for gets counted on that ballot. So, are there any other questions that I can answer for you today? How was that?
I like that last part. When you emphasize if you don't vote the way we've said, you know, what the options are, your vote won't count. Bottom line.
So, Sergeant Perkins, what would you add to that?
So, like you said, if we need you to vote today, like we explained, otherwise your vote doesn't count or wouldn't count. We really want to make sure that you can vote and do, exercise your constitutional right to do so, and we want to make sure that happens. So we want to make sure you vote the correct way. So you really need, if you can just follow the directions we give you. If you need help doing that, we can have somebody assist you with that.
Mark.
Right.
The machine's gonna spit that out, is it not?
If somebody, and we're going to talk about the ballot here, yes, and how cross-voting works. I can almost guarantee you that every single one of you is going to hear, well, that's not the way it used to be. This is that election, okay? This is the election that people don't remember effectively because it is a little bit weird. But if you place it in your head like how we used to do it with 4 different pieces of paper, and now it's just on one, so we're just saying, you know, and Lisa at the county programmed this ballot just wonderfully so that it's nice to have. And so we'll go through some of that with the overvotes and cross votes. And one thing that I will tell you is that might be, if somebody makes a mistake on their ballot and the machine spits it out, I'm really embarrassed that I didn't vote my ballot right and it's being spit out, whether there's people standing around or not. There's a machine tech standing there and my ballot is not right. My response might be to make up, well, that's not how it used to be, right? You know, sometimes in our embarrassment, we don't just go up and own it and claim it and be like, gosh darn it, I forgot about that, can I get another ballot? That's the rare occasion. Most of the times you're coming up with, why didn't that happen right? And you know, we've had a lot of spoilage in our in-person voting up to date, so I've ordered a lot of ballots to accommodate a lot of spoilage. Sue Ellen.
Well, people can still split their ticket in the general election.
In the fall,
And
yep.
they might be
In November, you'll be able to vote for
primary
whoever you
versus
want in whatever party you want.
They might be.
And that might be a good option to tell them too.
Split their ticket when they have the general election.
That's right. Yes. Did you have a question?
Comment.
Uh-huh.
This is a primary election, and a primary election was set up to give people, the voters, more powers compared to the guys smoking cigars in the back room of the bar when they made the decision as to who was going to run on the Republican or Democratic ticket. And now you've got the option, but just like those guys 150 years ago in the back room of the bar, you can only select people from a single party.
You're right. There's a lot of states that actually do this particular process by what's called a caucus. So when you hear about the Iowa caucus, that back room that he's referring to, right, that's going to put people in a place, so that actually does happen. And you know, and the voters of Wisconsin are actually getting a voice on that day. So that's pretty cool. But as far as I want to not waste any more of Sergeant Perkins' time. If we don't have any more questions for him, I'd like to thank you so much for being here today.
If you guys do have more questions, like we'll be back at 4 o'clock. We do multiple shows a day. So we'll do it again, but also obviously it's going to be recorded as well.
And if you'd like his
I-
contact information, I'll go ahead and email
Yep.
that to you, Nathan. That you do have a handout, and then I also did put one together just kind of more specifically for poll workers too, to kind of give you some handouts. I know that was a really tight time frame, and you rocked it, so thank you. All right, we're going to shift gears here a little bit. We've still got a lot to cover, and a lot of these we will be able to apply our non-escalation, de-escalation techniques to. The first one is going to be this consolidation of polls. I am, coming in on my 1-year anniversary here, and this is probably not very popular to the voters. One of the de-escalation techniques that I would ask you to do is that running 5 polling places uses fewer resources so we can be a good steward of your tax dollars. I'm sure as we continue to do this on a regular basis, we'll get used to knowing the 2 places or maybe the 1 place that you'll need to come. But if you do need to go 2 places, 1 place in a primary and 1 place in a general, you'll know why. So we're going to have 10 polling places in November, right? And some of you, just like some of the voters, are going to have another place to go to. And I'm going to show you how I did those maps and explain it so maybe you can carry the water for me on election day and help everybody grasp that. One thing I do want to tell you is we have been pushing this message. Is there anybody in the room that is hearing this for the very first time today? We have been pushing this message. And I've even asked, how do I get to you if you don't have a computer, you don't have a smartphone, and you don't get the newspaper? How do I get to you? Because in today's environment, I can no longer 100% accommodate that. So we used to mail you postcards, right, when your polling place changed, and that was great. But how do you feel about knowing that so many of those postcards got thrown away and it cost the city $28,000 to run that postcard? So what can I do with $28,000 and still get the message out? So that's the approach that I have taken, right? Is I don't want to, it was going to be $21,700 to do a postcard to all the voters. Well, if you have a cell phone and you sign up to get information pushed out to you with the city, you're going to know. The city pushes out on a Friday, a news blast. It's been in every single one. So I did a podcast. And it was a 39-minute YouTube that talked about everything in my office, including this. I'm on Spotify, on a Spotify podcast. We've done social media blast. We've done Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I was on the WCLO on July 25th, and we talked about this for 25 minutes on July 25th. That is out there if you want to go back and look at it. I've sent flyers to the library. I mailed every church in Janesville asking them to put it in their announcements. I put some at the senior center, and we've been trying to use media. There's a press release going out today that's hopefully going to hit the various outlets to be able to communicate this. This is the message. New in 2022, this is a primary, February and August. This is your general elections. So primary, general. Primary is when we're whittling it down, right? Generals are when we're voting on who's going to take that office. So this is whittling it down, and we just don't have the kind of turnout to justify 10 polling places and using all of those resources. It just makes more sense financially to do this consolidation. So you'll see this little group right in here. See how this is pink, this is purple? Those people are going to have 2 places. They'll go 1 place for a primary and 1 place for a general. But eventually, right, you do it once or twice. It's that habit, memory, right? And you can always look on My Vote to do it as well. So this is something we're going to have to get used to. It's not something Janesville has done in the consolidated polling places. In other communities that I've worked in, we've done this with very much success. It's just a matter of, it's something we're going to get used to. So if you could carry the message for me, the reason why we're doing it, the taxpayer might actually turn around and shake your hand saying, for once, we're saving some money. Andrea?
Hi, Wade. One question I get asked a lot is I live in the 4th Ward, and we just walked to Wilson School and walked back and said hi to all the neighbors. And it was the same people, you know, that ran it every time, and we, you know, technically own the school, and we didn't have to even take our car, and we didn't have to own a car, and we didn't have to take the bus. And people are just like, why aren't we doing that? That's what they ask. Like, it can't possibly cost a penny more. You don't have to do it.
We're not allowed to do elections in the schools anymore. So that was a decision that was made by the school board and the school administration, and they quoted us that it was a safety concern. And so we had to honor that, and that's why we're in a lot of churches. Finding new polling places is very, very hard. It's the reality that we have, and if the school district feels that way, then I have to honor that.
I really appreciate that information.
Yeah, you bet.
Get that word out, and maybe we'll have a different school board next year.
Yeah, yeah. So the schools were nice to partner with, but they cited it as a safety concern, and I'm going to honor that. Did you have a question?
Yeah, is this map information on the city website?
It's on the city website, right? So if you go to janesvillewi.gov/voting locations, you get 3 maps. You get your ward map, your consolidated map, and your general map. You also can go to that myvote.wi.gov, and it's going to pinpoint exactly where you need to go all the time. And for the super old school people, 608-755-3070, we will look it up for you, okay? I don't want to leave anybody out. COVID, it's still here. It's still going through communities and workplaces, and I just need to remind you, masks and gloves will be available. I will be sending a PPE tote. We have relaxed our protocols. I have a lot of pens going out. If somebody requests a new pen, if they walk away, don't worry, I got more. Stay home if you're not feeling well, right? So it's not just, oh, I don't have a temperature, this just must be allergies. I woke up a little plugged up today, I think because of the weather that happened on me yesterday. I tested before I came in today, because can you imagine if I came in with COVID and I spread it to every single one of you? Well, that's going to make for a hard Tuesday. So these are things I just need you to be conscious of. So if you're not feeling well, please stay home. Nathan?
The masks and gloves, are they for the election inspectors or for the public?
You know, if there's a public person that wants a glove or a mask, just give it to them. You know, no, we don't want to put them out as like a free offering, like get a free mask with a vote. That's not how we want to do this. But if they actually want one, just give them one. We still need to clean often, okay? COVID is still something that we need to be very cautious of using our hand sanitizer. You'll have wipes to wipe down the voting booths. Germs are germs, I get that. And, thankfully, most of us are now vaxxed and boosted, and the symptoms are not putting us in the hospital. But it is going to be my #1 goal. We have gotten to it thus far, and I have not had one reported case of COVID because of an election to date. I want to keep it that way, okay? Question in the back?
Yeah, if for some reason we can't work on Tuesday, who do we notify?
Your chief. And if you don't know who your chief is, call that 608-755-3070. Our office will get the message out to the chief if you don't know who your chief is. So, and if you get a voicemail at that number because we're helping someone else, leave a message, right, with, this is Lori. I'm supposed to work at City Hall today. I'm not feeling well. I'm sorry. Good luck. I really hope I don't have a lot of those. The good news, and I'll say it right up front, if any of you are doing this because, oh my gosh, it's my civic duty, and if I didn't do it, I'm packing my bags for a guilt trip next week. And if that's your deal, we have a lot of people signed up. In fact, I don't think we've ever had it in the city of Janesville where we've had 2 chiefs call us and say, I think I got too many people. I think we're going to have a lot of people sitting around. This is the opportunity to buddy up on the Badger book. This is the opportunity to learn. If you want to back out on your shift because this is just, I'm just doing it because I feel like I have to, by all means go on down and tell Mary that, if it works, we'll take you off the list until November. Hey, I'm going to need all hands on deck in November. So this is not going to be the case in November. But when we consolidate, we get a really good group here. And so if that's the case, by all means. Equipment at the polls. We are all now on Badger Book. No more poll books unless, you know, the sky falls and we've got to deploy those things. I do have a backup that goes to the polls. Don't worry, you've got paper poll books, the little tiny slips. I got everything that we can just deploy out should something go horribly wrong here. But this is the process we're going to go. I've trained up enough people that are intermediate at best that will be willing to help the newbies. And that's why I've kind of put extra bodies at the polls, is I want you to be able to be really, really ready for when it's really, really busy in November. So take this election to be able to learn and get some hands-on experience. Take your turn at the Badger Book. Understand it. I want you all to be able to check a voter in, to register a name change on a voter, and to register an address or do a new registration. So those 4 things are the things I want you to gain mastery on here. There's only a couple of people that will have to learn how to upload the data and take it off at the end of the night, because all this is a fancy little piece of equipment that until you load the data on it, it's not much good. The express vote, the ADA ballot marker is still there. Just know that the regular stock, if by chance you wind up with some of that 14-inch stock, don't use it, it won't work. This is a 17-inch ballot. We're sending some of that out in the chief suitcase, so make sure that you have the right ballot stock out, that it's the long stock. And then, of course, everybody's pretty familiar by now with the DS200. We've had those since 2015. Be patient with that. Make sure the bar in the back is down, right? It's got to be snapped in the back, and otherwise the first ballot's going to jam. If your first ballot jams, what do you remember? Oh, I'll bet the bar's not down. Let's get that jam out of there. It should go fine. It's a 2-sided ballot and it's 17 inches. So by the time it goes in there and it wants to take a picture of both sides of the ballot, it's going to take just a little bit longer than usual. And then we're going to talk about what's going to happen at the end of the night. Some of your polling places might look a little bit different now, right? We used to kind of like to have the whole room open and put everything up against the wall. And now what we're trying to set up is a one-way traffic flow so that when you come in, this is the out. So if the coming in is over here, we want to be able to come into the Badger books, go to the ballot table, put our ballot in the machine, and leave. And so if you start here, go to the ballot table, vote in the middle, go here and here, we then have this nice, see what we're trying to accomplish? That doesn't mean you can't move the furniture when you get there to accommodate you, but just try to keep in mind this is what we're trying to accomplish, right? Is that one direction. The way COVID is working and the way we're learning it is it's by going here, here, and here and having this point right here where we're blocking things. And plus traffic flow, right? Having in and out. Maybe you go in and out the same door, but, and then chiefs have, like, if you're in charge of putting out the big metal signs, I think DPW has volunteered to do it this time. But if you're, chiefs have a map in their book on where those are supposed to go. It's very important that you don't just leave those right up against the building, especially if you're at Compass Church, right? We got to have one out on Highway 14. We got to have one on Wuthering Hills Drive. We got to have one on Wilden, and then we got to have one right in front of the church. So they've got to have 4. All right, we already covered this page. This primary is a weird one. This is your ballot, and this is what's on the ballot. So let's talk a little bit about the ballot. It is a partisan primary. Your party contest is in this first alley with all the instructions. So if you're working at the ballot table, it's not going to be your standard kind of, the ballot table's a little bit of a cakewalk, but it's not going to be this time. So get your Wheaties, wear your glasses, because not only are you going to have to explain to every voter, you're going to have a lot more ballot styles. Because you have, like at the library, you have 7 wards. You have 7 ballot styles. At the Rock County Resource Center, you have wards 8 through 14. So you're going to have to issue the right ballot. So you're going to have to look at that ticket that spits out of the Badger book a couple of times. You've got 4 eyes sitting there with 2 people. Use them to. Oh, Siri wants to play. So use 2 people if you have to. You know, this ticket says Ward 16, right? Yep, it's circled. Okay, is this a Ward 16 ballot? Yep. So this pre-initialing game, I don't recommend it this time. Just because it's going to be so many live ballots and you're going to have a lot of spoilage to keep up with, because people are going to go down every row and just pick a person, and the machine's going to go, ha. But if they picked a party, it's okay. The machine, and for those of you in the back trying to see up here, I just want you to, I don't know if you noticed that the screens on the side, you can probably see them better. So I'm sorry about that. If they picked a party, that's what the party preference is for. If you pick a party and then you go pick one person in every contrast all the way across, you're going to be like, how in the world did the machine take that ballot? That can't be. What it's doing is, remember I talked to you guys about these alleys all the way along. We programmed the ballot that if they filled in this bubble here on column 1, row 60, and that says Democrat, it's only going to count votes for the Democrat. All this other stuff doesn't count. So we program in these if-then statements, and we've tested them so that if you pick a party, it's going to ignore all the other stuff that a voter does. So I think that's really important for all of you to know, because the machine is going to take a ballot like that, and you're going to be like, well, how did it do that? So these are the contest. The contest winner on each one of these contests will go to the November ballot, where you can vote for whoever you want and whatever party you want. Joanne, did you have a question?
Well, not a question, but when the machine kicks out a ballot, you can ask them if they picked a party. If they did not, they can pick the party then.
That's correct. Joanne is saying that if the machine spits the ballot out and says you have voted in too many parties, what would you like to do? To cure their ballot, if they haven't overvoted a contest by voting for too many people and they've just overvoted a party, they can select a party and then put the ballot back in. And those if-then statements are going to go into effect, and it should take the ballot. Mark?
Is there going to be a different DS200 for each?
Nope. It's all programmed to go into the one machine.
So all 7 wards at the library are going to have one machine?
Yep. Yep.
Repeat the questions, please.
Sure. He asked if there were going to be multiple DS200s at the polls, and we're going to start with one machine. Tom?
This seems like a good place to ask it. So I come in and I say, I've heard that some people have withdrawn. Can you, as a poll worker, answer that question or respond to it?
No.
Or do you just walk away?
No. So he stated, we've had a lot of people dropping out of the race, right? Oh, so-and-so dropped out. Well, once you're certified to be on the ballot back in May or June, you're on the ballot for the ride. So I don't understand why some of them are doing that this close to the primary, because you're on the ballot for the ride. We don't print new ballots. We don't do updates. It's just there, and you're not really allowed to do that. The only thing you're able to share with the voter is, are there registered write-in candidates? And I don't know if there are yet. I have to check the state database. But no, you are not allowed to say, now remember, Sarah Godlewski dropped out. That's not something that you can share, right? The voter has to have some skin in the game here too, right?
What are you doing as far as allowing people to spoil ballots too? So if I've returned it, it's sitting here with you. Do I have the right to spoil that ballot or not?
Yes, if you've already returned an absentee and you want to do another ballot because of the impact of people dropping out, you can come to our office up through to Friday at 5 o'clock. And then you can, tomorrow at 5 o'clock, I have no idea what day it is where I live. Tomorrow at 5 o'clock to cast, we can spoil your existing absentee and you can cast another one. Same thing at the polls, right? If they get this wrong, we can spoil their ballot and give them another opportunity. If they get the second one wrong, we can spoil their ballot and give them an opportunity. But if they're not getting it in 2 chances, what do you think we ought to do?
Give them that
Express
little bit.
vote. Craig said it. Express vote. If you get that long ballot stock in the ADA machine, the machine is going to say, oh, mister, you're really not quite getting this here. But it says it in a really nice way that's not escalating and helps them understand the ballot. So, so you can try to encourage them that, you know, maybe doing this on the express vote would help you make sure that your ballot, because that's going to make sure that your ballot is good. If you just give them a third paper ballot and they get it wrong, you got to tell them 3 strikes, you're out like an umpire, and that's not going to be good.
Circling back to the candidates that have dropped, if they ask specifically who's dropped in, has anyone dropped in the lieutenant governor, can we answer that?
The question is, if somebody is asking specifically about a contest, has anybody dropped in the lieutenant governor, can we tell them? No, no, and no. The only thing you can share, the only thing, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about this, the only thing that you can share with the voter is if there are any registered write-in candidates, period. Okay, that's the only thing you can share about a ballot. Pick a party, stay in a party. You want to tell them that, right? This is a partisan primary. If you're working at the ballot table, I want you to take some notes right here. If you're generally a ballot person, this is a partisan primary. You need to pick a party and vote for candidates in that party. Do you have any questions about this ballot before you go to vote? The only thing that you can help them understand is that this is a party preference. You want to pick one party. See, I went blue, red, green, purple. See how she programmed it one row, right? So we couldn't have made this any easier to understand, but it's still going to be difficult because it only comes around every 2 years, and it's just not an easy consolidated ballot. This is your party preference, right? You can help them with that, and then they can ask you, are there any registered write-in candidates? And you can say, well, let me consult my list. You can't put the list up on the table. You have to look at it from a list. Question in the back.
If it spits out, if it spits out the ballot because they cross-voted, and they then choose a party, can they then, like for example, if they cross-voted, can they then vote for that candidate in their party? If there was a candidate in both parties running, can they choose the candidate in their party once they, or do they need to do a whole new ballot?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Say if they voted for a Republican candidate and then they decided that they, you know, the rest of their thing, they voted Democratic. And there was a Democratic candidate also running in that category. Can they then vote for that Democratic candidate with that instead of the Republican candidate?
You can only vote in one party, so regardless of what you do on your ballot, when you fill in the bubble over here for that party, that's the party the machine's going to count.
So would it have counted that Democratic candidate then, even if the bubble wasn't filled in?
You have to fill in the bubble for the individual candidates for this ballot to work.
So can you fill in the Democratic candidate then if you'd already chosen a Republican?
If you didn't fill in the party, circle. So the question, so she's saying, all right, I went to the voting booth and I voted for all of these Republicans here, all right? Then I also voted for one person in the Democrat field. The machine's going to spit this out. When it comes out of the machine, the one thing that you're going to want to ask them is, okay, you can fill in a party over here and it's only going to count the contest for the party that you choose. So if you decide to change parties in your mind, like we don't know that, because that's what I think you're doing, is you're changing parties in your mind and saying, no, I'm not going to vote Republican, I'm just going to vote Democrat. So then you can pick Democrat, adjust your ballot, and the machine's going to do that.
I think to answer her question, though, is what your question is let's say I vote for everybody Republican, but instead of Ryan Style, I vote for Ann Rowe. And I say, then my ballot comes out, you say you can decide who you want, and I say, okay, I want to be Republican. I can then go in and fill in Brian's Style and it'll count Brian Style, but if I don't fill it in, it won't count it, and I think that's the gist of her question.
It's not how I understood it. My understood it was if the ballot was shut back out and you crossed over in the different parties, and you didn't select a party, you can then select the party and then go back and vote in your Republican or whatever for that person. Will that count?
Yeah. So the instruction on this ballot, this is a partisan primary. Let's not complicate it. Let's not complicate it. There's 10 ways to vote this ballot for sure. This is a partisan primary. Pick a party, stay in that party, vote for individual candidates in that party. I'm not saying that for my health. I want you to say that to the voters. Pick a party, stay in the party, and vote for the individual candidates in that party. Now, if the machine spits it out because they crossed parties, they voted for some here and some here, a way to cure that ballot is to have them then pick a party and fill in the bubble in the party preference. If they pick that party and fill it in, the machine is going to say they chose this party. It's going to count for all these contests in this party and not in this party. Here's another trick we're going to see. Well, I really like that Kurt Fell for sheriff, but I'm a Republican. So even though he's over here, I'm going to go down to sheriff and I'm going to write in Kurt Fell because I'm going to give him a vote. Well, you go ahead and try that, but you guys are going to see that on election night, and you're going to say, no. They can only run for office in the party that they're in. Okay? Is that clear too? Yep. It's a hard ballot, and we can debate it all day. But the general is pick a party, stay in that party, vote for individual candidates in that party. If you cross over, you can cure it. If that's not the wishes of the voter, let's give them another ballot. If on the third try they're just not getting it, suggest the express vote. We have a machine over here that makes this, and be careful with that, right? We don't want to be like, oh, you're not getting it. Let's go over here to the special machine. Remember our training. You know, we got a really cool machine over there that helps make great sense of this, and I must not be explaining it right. So would you please consider using that machine? Because I clearly am not able to explain it right, and that's on me. Then they'd be like, well, maybe, okay.
Because it doesn't print it until they've done it all correct.
Right, it's not going to, on the express vote, it's not going to print it until they've got it all right, right? So it's going to say, no, you got to go back and do this. No, you got to go back and do that. No, you can't do this. That's not allowed. So it's going to tell them on the screen all the things that we're sitting here debating. So quick questions, then we're going to move on. Jerry, nice and loud.
Yes. If a person selected their party in column 1.
So they selected their party over here.
And then they got scatterbrained and crossed over.
So they got scatterbrained and they started going all over the ballot.
Didn't think twice about it, and they put it in the DS200.
And then they put it in the machine.
The machine will take it.
The machine's going to take it.
Picked their party.
Because you picked your party. That's correct.
Only count the ones in that.
And it'll only count the ones in that party.
That are marked.
That are marked. The candidate. It's only going to pick the candidates that they voted for in that party. Okay, questions?
Since these are high-fangled and very technical machines with tons and tons of new programming, the if then, would it be possible for us to do a hand count of all the paper ballots?
No.
After this one, just to
No.
make sure things are working?
No, because we test at the county and then we just did a public test, and the people that were concerned about this showed up at the public test this week and showed that the machines are working. So if there are people that don't trust this, they can request a recount, but only a candidate or their organization can request a recount. But I'm not going to do a hand count at the end of the night on these for the if-thens. These machines are programmed. It's a glorified adding machine. Yeah. No, that's not an option. Question?
Where are the sheriff candidates located on?
At the very bottom. Sheriff candidates are going to be at the very bottom, just above the clerk of circuit court. It always goes federal in each party. In each party. They had to pick a party. They're not nonpartisan. The sheriff is not a nonpartisan candidate. The sheriff and the clerk of courts has to file their papers as a Democrat, Republican, Independent, etc.
There's confusion out there among friends and neighbors about that exact thing. So if somebody says, why is the sheriff not on the ballot? And we would say it's on the...
It's going to be in the party that they registered in, and if you don't like that your sheriff is partisan, then you need to contact your legislators because it would take a constitutional amendment.
But what I'm saying is, on this ballot, what are they? What are they?
So we've got two Democrats. I don't know if I've got a better picture of the ballot. We've got 2 Democrats and 1 Republican. So, and that,
No, 2 Democrats and 1 independent.
and 1 independent.
And the independents just automatically come
Yeah.
through to November is the answer, right?
Yeah, independents, Tom brings up a good point. Why can't I see the independent on the ballot? That might be your question. Your friends might know that that person is an independent. They are not going to be on this ballot. Is independent a party? No. What kind of election is this?
Partisan party.
It's a party primary. So why would they be on this ballot? Does that help? Okay. All right.
Lori, one last thing. So they can't change after they voted both sides and they marked Democrat under party. They can't go and then mark Republican.
No, you can only pick one. You'd have to spoil your ballot and start over. Yep, one party, vote for candidates. Right. David?
Can they write in on their own party, the independent candidate?
No. An independent candidate cannot get a vote on this ballot. An independent candidate, whether you like her or him or not, is not on this election. So it has no added value to do that. If they do that, we would not write that on our tally slip because they are not a candidate in a party primary.
All write-ins have to be re-registered.
Yes.
I mean, they can do it, it just won't count.
It'll take
So-
the ballot.
It'll take the ballot and it'll say, hey, there's a write-in that you need to look at, but when you're looking at them at the end of the night, you're going to say that person does not get a vote. They're not a registered write-in, or that person does not get a vote. They were on the ballot in that other party. So that is why you have a nice little 8-page handout for counting write-in votes in an August primary. Right?
Yeah.
This is going to take some time, and that's not the piece that's going to take 30 to 45 minutes. So, turnout. So this is historically our turnout going back to 2010, right? So we've had 7,000 ballots, 14,000 ballots, 10,000 ballots, 11, almost 12, 10. My guess in this one is we'll have about 11.5. It'll be one of our better ones. But what we have now is more people voting absentee. So as of yesterday, we had 4910 issued and 3154 returned. So here, if you're at MBAC, none of this really even applies to you. You're going to be in one of these rooms counting absentee ballots, and it's going to be a full day. But what it means is less person coming, so we're going to consolidate the polling places. I mean, if more people are going to trend towards absentee balloting, I got to put more bodies here, less bodies in the field. And so what you're going to expect to see is about 1,500 people at your polling place on Election Day. So that's me going on record. I hate going on record. But I hope I'm right. Could be a little less.
Keep track when we hit the number, we can close it.
Yeah, no, when you hit that number, you can't shut down. All right, so organized and prepared. How many of you worked the April election? How many of you felt that the organization of the materials was good and understandable? Okay, so then let's just do that again. All right, so the chief has a folder. You've got a floor plan. You've got some new supply totes. You've got a tackle box. It has all kinds of stuff in it, so if you need some tape or a paper clip or a pen, it's in the tackle box. There are opening and closing tasks list. Follow those instructions. If you find errors on the instructions, write down what the problem is and to have the chief give it to me. I'll fix it and run, if they don't make sense, I'll fix them and run you new ones. You don't have to go with bad directions. So if you find issues, let me know. Nathan brought a couple of things to my attention, so that's helpful. Update the ballot reconciliation form. So there is a ballot reconciliation form that I don't think Janesville is used to having. But what that does is it sorts the ballots into their ward and counts them, and you write down how many ballots you're putting in each bag so that I can compare it to the tape and see how many incorrect ballots we've issued. But we're not going to have any, right? We're going to issue the right ballot every single time, right? Yeah, right. Now, you guys, more confidence. We're going to issue the right ballot every time, right? Yeah, okay. There are some new signs and supply boxes. So if you don't have what you need on election day, keep in mind, I want to make sure you have the tools and resources to do your job. So please let me know that. In the back of the chief folder, there's a nice little let me know thing that you can write me all kinds of love letters on, and I will figure it out. So that was a lot about the ballot. Now let's talk about election day. We're halfway. So arrive at 6 o'clock or 2:30, depending what your shift is. So if you signed up to work a shift, your shift is either going to start at 6 or 2:30 unless you and Mary worked out something different. Otherwise, that's the expectation on a shift. If you worked all day, arrive at 6 a.m., stay till everybody's done. Everybody's tired, right? Everybody's feet hurt, and everybody's got a headache. So bring your Tylenol, take it at about 7 o'clock, right? Stay till it's done. Somebody had their hand up for a question.
I didn't know, and I forgot. Is there going to be any color coding on these ballots?
There's color stripes.
Okay, and then
They don't help, but there's...
downstairs when we voted, a man came in with 2 ballots to turn in and was told you can only turn in 1. If someone comes to the polling place and says, I want to turn in this ballot, what do? Do we have to verify who he is?
This is your non-escalation training going into effect again. This has been one of the hardest things for my staff to do, is we've had couples where he's got 2 ballots in his hand, and it's mostly the man, and he's like, my wife's at home, she can't get out, here's our ballots. And I have to say, I'm sorry, sir, I can take your ballot, but I can't take your wife's. You're going to need to mail it, or she's going to need to bring it in herself. Okay? Let's not talk about whether or not the rule is good, bad, or indifferent, because that is what we were instructed to do and what we have to do, which means that's what you are going to have to do. They can't bring them down here to MBAC unless it's just their ballot. What I don't want you to do is to be checking IDs. Okay? If somebody comes in with 1 ballot and they say, this is my absentee ballot, will you make sure it gets counted? Give it to the chief. The chief has a special envelope in their chief folder to put those in for us to pick up. If there's 2 ballots, you simply ask which ballot is yours. They got 4 ballots. Which ballot is yours? If they got a bucket of ballots, which ballot is yours? Am I clear? The rest of these have to be mailed back or taken by the voter to City Hall by 8 o'clock today.
There's no box outside of this one.
And they cannot put them in the drop box at City Hall. That's for your utility bill. Question, follow up?
Okay, so he comes in, he's got a ballot, and he says, here's my wife's ballot. I want to turn it in.
I can only accept your ballot as the voter. The current rules as they stand, whether we agree or not, right? Whether we agree or not, right? You can tell me it's a stupid rule. If the voter goes and says, well, that's the dumbest rule I've ever heard, I understand this is upsetting.
Option is for him to have her bring it to...
Yep. But guess what? Maybe she's out in the car. Just can't get in. Can you go get it? 2 people? Yes. Pick it up? Yes. By all means. Yep. By all means, you can take a curbside ballot. It'd be just as easy to have them come to City Hall, though, and have me go get the ballot so we can check it in and get it up here right away. But if that's your option, okay. If she's in the car and you can go get the ballot from her, now he's got to hand the ballot to her, so you take it from her. Don't just go out and say, oh, I see her, I'll take it. No shortcuts here, people. We want to stay, if we make the paper and it's front page above the fold, it's got to be a good news story, or I don't have a job to work November, okay?
A follow-up, as far as we're not going to check IDs, but I walk in and I say, here's the ballot and it says Mary Lipinski. Will you take it? If I'm saying it's mine, but it's really my wife's.
Which ballot is yours?
Well, I only have one and it
Okay.
has a woman's name on it.
Is this your ballot?
No, it's my wife's.
Okay, I'm really sorry, Mr. Lipinski, but I'm not able to take this ballot because I can only accept the voter's ballot. She'll need to take that to City Hall herself today before 8 o'clock.
So you want to at least look at the name and see if the name
Sure.
matches the sex.
Of course. I mean, look, we're not looking to commit fraud. That's not our job. So that would be fraudulent if you just went, well, I know it's a female, but it's a dumb rule. Let's put it in the envelope. That's fraud, you guys, whether they're committing it or you are. Don't do that. Deb.
Just to be clear, so anyone that comes in with two ballots and I ask which one's yours and I take that and they're looking at the other one, it's already too late to mail it in come Tuesday.
Deb is saying, just to be clear, if somebody comes in with two ballots, it's already too late to mail it on Election Day. So if she says which one is yours and they take that one and the other one's left in their hand, there's really only one other option to make it count, right? That voter has to bring it back to either the polls or City Hall to be counted. City Hall 8 o'clock, I prefer they're at the polling place by 4, but the law says they can bring it in at 8 o'clock. It just means
And it can be any polling place.
It can be any polling place, yeah. Yeah, it can be any polling place. And just so you know, there's a really brilliant young lady in the back who has asked me, why don't we have an election where you can just go to any one of your polls and vote? Doesn't that seem like a dream come true? I'm not allowed to do that by law yet, but in my career, I hope that that's an option that I'll be able to give you all. So you're gonna get, I've ordered enough ballots to anticipate a lot of spoilage. Those of you working the ballot table, take another note. When you open up all your 7 different ballot styles or 8 different ballot styles, you're gonna take the last pack of 50 ballots or the last pack of 100, whichever way they came to you, put a sticky note before you open the last one that says, call the clerk. Okay? If you open that last pack and you wait till you're down to 10 ballots, hey, that's on you. I can't help you anymore. You're going to have to put them at the express vote for the rest of the night. I hope you got enough of that long stock. You got to call me in time to be able to get some ballots out to you. We used to pull some back. We used to keep some back here and just give them to you as you needed them. I'm giving you everything I have, and I need you to know that you have everything I have. So when you set those out, put a note, okay?
There's no point in calling you then.
Well, yes, I can get more ballots. We have a local printer that has the problem with printing ballots is they're on a special weighted stock. So they're not a 20-pound stock. They're not a 30-pound stock. So, and I'm not going to tell you what pound they are, but that's why the machine is calibrated to take that ballot. Now we're gonna set up. So when we get to the polls, it's important that we have all the tables and the chairs and the voting booths up, right? But it's more important to me, and I think it should be more important to you, that the Badger book and the DS200 are up and opened and ready to go. Then finish moving the furniture and doing all of that stuff and setting up your table, right? So equipment has to be ready to go. We don't want to be fumbling at 6:30 going, how do I log into this thing? What's my password? Joanne, how do I get into this? I can't get in. There's votes still in the tabulator. It says there's 246 ballots in the tabulator. What do I do? I can't help you as well as I could if you called me at 6:30 instead of at 7:05 when everybody is going, there's 246 ballots in the machine this morning. Oh, guess the clerk stuffed the ballot box before she sent it out there, didn't she? No, what the clerk did was she did a public test and had some people come and look at the machine, and she didn't clear the votes out before she boxed it up and sent it out to you. There's usually an explanation. I can give it to you so that it doesn't get made up at the coffee shop, but I need to hear from you sooner than later, okay? Retrieve your username and login from the chief inspector. You'll get a little card. It'll tell you, you'll keep that with you all day. It will only be good for one election, okay? Make sure the machine is plugged in. You've got battery packs in the back. Everybody knows about these weird battery packs. They're like this big. And for some unknown reason, they have a plug in it that comes loose on all of these machines and your DS200. Make sure they're very tight. Don't tape them if you don't have to, because they look gross and they get sticky. But if you have to, okay. But make sure they're plugged in, because otherwise the machine's just going to shut down on you when the battery dies.
And it'll beep at you before it shuts down.
It will beep. It will beep and say, hey, good luck. The express vote's the same way, right? There are seal numbers on these machines. So when you open them up and you see these seals when you're doing it, if you're the person setting up that equipment, you need to verify that seal and then report it to your chiefs so that your chiefs can record it on the inspector statement. So we have what's called a chain of custody, right? When I picked up everything from the county clerk who programs the ballot and the sticks that go into the machine, I have to fill out a chain of custody that shows what I've done. And if with the chain of custody, it shows these are the seals that were on the bags when I took them. If there's not a seal on it, no seal. Clerks make mistakes. I'm not perfect. So I know, shocker. But make sure that you're recording that. This chain of custody is something that, and my gut feeling is that my recount is going to be in August, not in November. There will be one. I mean, there just will. But I have a feeling it's going to be in August. So don't, just because it's a quieter one, don't take for granted the steps that need to be taken. Nathan.
If there's not a seal, would it be a good idea to take a picture?
I don't need pictures. I trust you. Chain of custody is just fine. No seal. Make sure someone else looks for it, because like on the DS200, it's kind of inside the locked tank. But so the sign people, you got a tube now. It looks like there's a house plan inside of it. There's 3 large signs that go on the wall. The only thing I'm going to ask is, my type A personality, those of you that remember me from spring, will you please put the sign up straight on the wall, and will you please use white tape and not make it look like a kindergartner did it, because there are other people that are judging our elections based on that, not on how well we counted the ballots. Like, some people go in for a voting experience, and if we can't hang a sign right, what makes you think that we can run an election right?
Okay, the guy that brought the level was just nuts.
Yeah. Now, there was no level, was there? Yeah, maybe. So if you can just be careful, guys. Don't just slap them up, right? We want to present. It's an election, and we want to present. You're having company today, all right? Set up your greeter table, your check-in table, post your signs. So on the Badger book, and most of you chiefs know where this is, I call it the hamburger. You click on the hamburger on the Badger book and it says certify. Those of you working on the Badger book will certify by signing the yellow box on the Badger book. There's no paper to sign. You do that right away in the morning when you come in. You click on the hamburger. If that's your get logged in, click on the hamburger, click on the certify button, sign your name. We're in for the day. Once you log out, someone else comes up to it. You can click on the hamburger. The hamburger is just a menu in the upper right-hand corner. It's 3 lines, but the top and bottom kind of look like a bun. So I say it's a hamburger. Click on it. It's a drop-down menu. It says admin, main, certify, exit. If you put certify in there, it shows that you came in, you signed, that you worked that station for the period that you were logged in. Okay? Check the atomic clock. I don't care for the atomic clock. And so if your clock doesn't work, get somebody that has a cell phone. That's an atomic clock too. If you like the atomic clock, it's in your box and you can certainly use it, and it's the chief's decision, all right? It's the chief decision on what we're going to use for the official time. But the official time is 7 o'clock. Do not open the polls before 7 o'clock. State statute, just so you know, it doesn't necessarily say these exact words, but it's very close, because our laws are old. So feel free to have fun with that. Hear ye, the polls are now open. Utilize.
We can open the doors before then, they just can't vote.
You can open the doors, yes. You can have people standing in line. I know that it's kind of been past practice as a Janesville resident who voted before I went to work, that you would have them stand outside. Heck, if the weather's nice and you don't want them bothering you, I have no problem with you not open the doors till 7. It's up to you guys. You just don't want them milling around. You want a nice orderly fashion line. Yes, you can open the doors. I don't know if I would do it, but you have lots of user manuals and troubleshooting. You have what's called quick guides. A quick guide to voter ID, a quick guide to voter registration, a quick guide to the Badger books, a quick guide. Look, especially if you're an extra body and you're not being utilized right at that moment, you have plenty of opportunity to kind of walk around and learn. Use this election as an opportunity to learn about the election. Call the clerk on election day phone. So the election day phone, 3073, it's been that forever, 3073. You've called it many a time. So that's the number that we're going to call you from as well. Work to resolve as quickly as possible if you have equipment issues. I'd rather you call me as soon as you think you have an issue and I can maybe walk you through it on the phone than trying to reboot and set up, especially with these guys, because these Badger books have a parent, like a mainframe, a master computer, however you look at it. I call it the parent. Mom, dad, you choose. The rest of them are children, and without the parent present, the children won't behave properly. So a lot of times it's an order of operations. Well, did mom get started up first? Because if the kids got started first, it's a mess. We will have observers. I've been told that there will be observers. Observers are our friends. Deploy your non-escalation, de-escalation techniques when needed. Okay? Please be welcoming to observers. Depending on how they sign in, you tend to, just like me, apply your bias and be like, what's that woman want? What's she doing? She's talking on the phone. Should I make her stop? But if they signed in on the other way and you apply your bias, it's, Nathan, can I get you a bottle of water? You comfortable there? Don't do that. Everybody is welcoming. These are your observers for the day. They're here to do a job. Questions of observers go to who? Chief. Okay, and the chief is then going to deploy non-escalation, de-escalation techniques to make sure that the observers have what they want. They've got little bright yellow name tags that say observer on them. And if they leave the polling place, I only have you ask them to sign out and sign back in, just so that if there are incidents throughout the day, we can explain, well, that observer wasn't even in the building when that occurred. Does that make sense to you? Because I know a lot of times we'll let them go out and make a phone call. We don't have them sign out, sign in. But then all of a sudden the DS200 did something at this time, and it's like, well, you weren't even signed in as an observer at that time. That helps me explain to the lawyers what happened, okay? Mark?
They can't be sitting at their station or whatever talking on the phone.
They can be, so text and computer work is just fine. If it's not disruptive and they're making a phone call and they're being quiet, I'm fine with that. Absolutely no video, and if any video is suspected from the phone or the laptop or the iPad, it's just as you can kind of observe that behavior. Like, if I think you're recording me, what I might do is go kind of over here and just pretend that my attention is on you and asking how you're doing today, and then I'm just kind of taking a little browse around the room. You all right? Good. All right, things are good. You don't have to be like, are you recording? So it is against the law, right? So we will not allow, and then they cannot interfere with the election, right? So I can't hear the person stating their name. Some people don't talk very loud, and that's not, you have to state your name and address out loud by law. We get tired I'm tired by 8 o'clock, and I'm still going, only 12 more hours to go. But if it's 8 o'clock, and you've started to slip into the thing of somebody just handing you their driver's license and you just start typing it in and they don't say it out loud, that's when you need to get some coffee. And because we have to have their name and address said out loud for the record. It's a part of the law. Even though you can look at the driver's license as much as you want, you can even find the voter in the Badger book before if you want to. They still have to say their name and address out loud, okay?
There are exceptions for illness.
Yeah, illness, mute, there are exceptions for it, but they usually would have, they would know that, so, yeah.
What was that 6 foot thing?
Okay, it's a minimum of 6 feet. So if I'm there to observe, if I'm there to observe and I'm an observer of this training, this is about 6 feet from everybody else. Now, if the Badger book was the place that they wanted to observe, would this 6 feet be a good accommodation to give them? Why not?
Far away.
It's too far away, right? Be welcoming. Maybe over here in this corner for the Badger books would be a good spot, or maybe up here would be a good spot. Sorry, Ellen. Or the door. But 6 feet, right, that's the minimum, right? You can't put them further than 6 feet away if they don't want to be. Voters, observers, media, this is your page if you have questions about what's allowed, what's permitted, what's not. You can silently use your cell phone. It's really cute when voters come in and they go to the voting booth together and then they start talking about their ballot and, no, I told you to vote for so-and-so, or I thought we were voting for. Technically, it's electioneering. Deploy your de-escalation techniques and just say, I realize that you talked about this before you came here, but talking about it at the polls is electioneering, and I'll need you to not do that. Question in the back?
It said that they can take photos or videos of themselves, but can they take a photo that includes the picture of the ballot?
Well, so that was a law that they used to not be able to, and they've removed that law. If they insist on it, don't get in their way, but would you please suggest that maybe that's not a good idea? And there are some young people, and millennials, are turning 40 pretty soon, right? That like to put everything they did out in public. I voted this ballot, I was number 17 at this poll. You might just say, I'm not so sure that taking a picture of the ballot close up is a good idea, but if you want me to take a picture of you while you put it into the machine, I'd be glad to help you with that. And the reason that I try not to get the ballot there is that you can make yourself a target, right? You can really make yourself a target. You vote one certain way, especially in a party election, and you can, we're just a weird human species now. Check-in. This is mostly for the chiefs in the room, but the chief is going to maybe ask you to help this. So we used to call in to the polls a little more often than we're going to now. I'm going to do it 4 times at 10, 1, 4, and 7. I'm going to have some specific questions. So if you're working the machine, you might be able to say, okay, they're going to be coming here pretty soon to know the machine number. I'm going to familiarize myself. What's the voter count on the DS200? So they'll say, Craig, what's on the DS200? And you'll say 476. And then what's on the Badger book? So go over to the server and right below the hamburger is a voter count. 474. Do those 2 numbers match? No. Why not? Well, there's 2 voters still voting a ballot at the booths. Perfect. You match. If you don't match, I need to know why. So plan for my call to be able to tell me we should match. How are you doing on ballot stock? You got enough of all wards? Are there absentee ballots that somebody needs to come and get? Do you have any provisional ballots? So people that voted provisionally. Do you have any? We need to know that by the end of the night because the law makes me post that on the website. And then we'll ask, hey, is there anything else you need from us? So at those times, that would be a good time to say, hey, we're out of pens. No, I'm not bringing coffee, donuts, or cheesecake. That's your job. In the supplies, you got lots of stuff here, right? These are what some of your quick guides look like, just so kind of you can familiarize yourself. I've provided a lot of information to you to be able to answer questions of the voters or of yourself as you go through. It's kind of up to you to review the resources and understand them. Here's a quick guide to provisional balloting. Like, can we vote a provisional ballot? Well, here's the 2 reasons why. So you could literally kind of read through this and know yes or no right out of the gate. What about if somebody, voted an absentee ballot and, can we do this? Well, this answers your question. And so the quick guide is right there for you to look at. The ineligible voter list is often referred to as the what?
Felon list.
The felon list. And I'm trying to walk away from that because I learned that it's not just felons that are on that list. I thought it was all just DOC, but these people have lost their right to vote or have been judged incompetent to vote. So like when my great aunt Edna lost her mind and a judge said she should probably no longer be voting, she's not a felon, but she's on the list. I don't have a great aunt Edna either. This list is confidential and is provided to the Badger Book terminals. So when you get these lists, when you have binders, put them between the Badger Books so that the person on the left or the right can get to the one in the middle, right? Have them look at it every single time you register a voter. You're going to have to check to make sure they're not in there. We don't want felons registering on Election Day, and we don't want Aunt Edna showing up. So if they're in there, they can't vote. If they're like, no, I'm not on paper anymore, I got my letter right here, go to the chief will call me. They may have been released on August 8th, and I ran on August 1st, and they got a letter from the DOC saying they're no longer on paper, they're no longer serving any part of their sentence, and their voting rights have been restored. Because you do know in Wisconsin, they always say, well, once you're a felon, you can never vote or own a gun, and that's not true. Once you complete your sentence and you're no longer on paper, you can restore your voting rights in the state of Wisconsin. So, and be discreet when you're checking the book. I just got to check something really quick, excuse me, and just look at it. If you open the book and, nope, you're not on the list. Just be discreet. Incident logs. Thank you. Oh, in the back.
So new registration is now done on this Badger.
That's right.
How many Badger books are there for each ward?
Oh, so you're going to start with 5 Badger books. Yeah, but you'd be so surprised.
No, for each poll.
Oh, for each polling place. I'm sorry. You get 5 for each polling place. Thank you.
There's a problem on the new registration that it's consuming the time on the Badger book. Does that hold up everybody?
No, because the cool thing about these Badger books is they're not ward specific. So when the people come in, you're going to have these laminated signs that you can tape to the front of the table that say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the chief or the greeter, whoever's in charge of kind of managing that flow, Mark will help you right over there at number 2. And anybody in Ward 1 through 7 at the library can vote at any one of those. So if it sends you to 2, get checked in. So that if it's taking a long time on Badger Book 5 to get registered in, we still have 4 other Badger books to keep people moving along.
So you can kind of say this one person doesn't mind handling new registrations.
Right. Oh yeah, I would not expect a new person to come in and just, yeah, that would be an over ask. So yeah, if we've got people that have done the registrations and are comfortable with it, so find out who those people are right away, and then but then observe, right, and watch what they're doing and coach each other, train each other up, so we're ready to go in November.
And the other thing I wanted to know, does the chief have a tape measure in case we get an observer who is arguing and wanting to escalate that is not 6 feet?
Well, there's a ruler in there. You have a ruler, but
Tall, spread their arms, that's 6 feet.
I know. If we need to bring a tape measure, I will find one.
Voters, so I want to have the tool.
Yeah. Yeah, if we need to find a tape measure, we will. I don't think we have one in the tanks right now. Andrea?
So the Badger book, and it's multiple, call them laptops, I guess. There's no, when the person registers, it gets typed into this machine, and then at the end of the day uploaded. There's no paper trail, there's no paper proof, there's no paper to put on file to go along with this voter registration.
That's correct.
So if someone hits the wrong button, forgets to hit it.
Hey, garbage in, garbage out, right? Do it right. The address is, when you start typing in an address, you start typing in 18 North Jackson. If it's a real address, don't put any punctuation in, and then use your, north, south, east, west is just NSEW. Your avenue is AVE, street is ST, right? So use those common. So if I'm putting in 18 North Jackson, I'm going to go 18 space N space Jack. And by the time I go there, if that's a place an address that has already had a registration in the system, it's going to auto-populate for you to just take your mouse and hit it. Then it's going to put in the city-state zip. And then it walks you through all the steps. Follow all the steps on the screen. So proof of residence, your list of everything that you can take is on there. If it's not on there, you really can't take it. If there's an exception that you think might happen, go to the chief or myself. Once you do that, then you have to record what that proof of residence is. So you're looking at it, you're recording it. You're going to sign that you registered this person on the screen, and the voter is going to sign on the screen. So no, there's no paper trail.
There's no printout when it's done.
Yeah, I get the printout.
At the end of the day, you print them all out of what managed to get uploaded.
I upload it and run the reports for the state.
So like 15 people are typing it in all day, and at the end of the day, it gets uploaded.
Yep, it's no different than a paper registration. We don't, sometimes it takes us 2 weeks to get through to your registration on election. You register someone on election day and we got to manually go back to the computer and put those in after the election. In a November election, that can take us 2 to 3 weeks. We get a month to reconcile. With the Badger books here the next day, I upload it into the system and it's in. So it's a lot quicker and a lot more accurate.
My concern is that a lot of times I have to go in person because 3 or 4 attempts on somebody's website or computer,
Well, give them your last name and your date of birth because they can look you up that way too if they can't spell your first name. Absentee ballots are here at the City Hall. If you receive a walk-in absentee ballot, call us to pick it up. I think we've exhausted our absentee ballot conversation. If they received an absentee ballot, it's going to say absentee issued. If we have the ballot physically in our custody here at City Hall, it's going to say ballot returned. If it says ballot returned, you're going to have to ask them this question. Did you personally return your ballot to the clerk's office? If they say no, but it says ballot returned, you need to call me. Once again, we're human, we make mistakes. Maybe we issued it for Thomas Larson, not Lipinski, because we were just not thinking that day. That would be a really big mistake, but
How would you find that? That's a her problem.
That's a me problem. Yeah, it's a me problem. I would go find the envelope that has the application on it, and I would look, because everything by election day is sorted here by ward alphabetically. So I'm able to come in and go, there's Ward 7. Oh no, I've got their ballot right here in my hand. And we do the same thing after we process them. They go in an envelope by ward alphabetically. So if that person is saying, I did not vote an absentee ballot, I can prove it yay or nay. And if it turns out we made a mistake, we're going to let them go ahead and vote. Now, if it says absentee issued, and they say, no, I didn't, you don't have to say, well, what'd you do with the absentee ballot? Where's the one that you got? That's what we do to our teenagers, not to voters, right? Where'd the phone I bought you last month go? So we don't ask them that. We just say, did you return that to the clerk in person or by mail? Nope, I didn't. Okay, then you can proceed. I have that on record, right? The machine already knows that there was an absentee issued, and by tomorrow I'm going to know that that person voted in person. So that's in the system. Again, that's next day versus a month from now. If once I'm reconciling, that person's ballot turns out to be in my custody, those two votes get put together and their information goes over to the county where District Attorney O'Leary can fight with that person to determine why they committed a Class C felony. And I only wish that the money that goes in fines to election fraud came back towards elections. We should Start a petition on that. That's a good idea, isn't it? Just came to me. Voter IDs. Voters are required to show their ID in order to vote. Now, there was a question in here, and I let Sergeant Perkins walk it through, but somebody said, well, they won't lower their mask for me to see. We're not doing that. If somebody comes in with a mask, we're going to assume that there's enough information on that person's image that we don't need to lower a mask. So, when you get on an airplane and they make you do that, because you probably saw that at TSA, right? You were going on a trip and they made you take it down, and that's where we said, well, that's how we're going to see them. Is riding on an airplane a constitutional right? No, it's a privilege, right? Can TSA kind of make their own rules?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can we make our own rules?
No.
Why not?
Because the state legislature.
Voting's a constitutional right, and we're going to do everything we can to accommodate a voter, and if we can make their ballot cast on election day, by golly, let's do it. So unless you have a specific reason to ask that person to pull their mask down to see their face, you know, if their telling character quality is their mustache, then maybe I need to see that to make sure that that's Mr. Williams. But you feeling picked on?
Same thing. We can't ask them to take the headscarf off, but you could ask them to take off their Ray-Bans.
So sunglasses, right? That's a telling piece. I mean, that's a telling piece. It's the driver's license says you've got green eyes, but what if I got blue contacts in? I mean, right? So the question on the ID is this, right? We're not looking at address. We're not looking at any of that. Does the name on the ID conform, not match, conform with the name on the poll book? So for me, it's going to say Lori or Lorena. For Tom, it's going to say Tom or Thomas, right? Deborah. Does it conform? Does the picture resemble the voter? I'd pass my ID around for some good laughs, but I'm afraid you guys would laugh too hard because I resemble the picture on my photo. Let's just leave it at that. They, you know, during COVID, they weren't reissuing, and so I got one that was like a picture from 12 years ago. So keep in mind, folks, that during COVID, they weren't reissuing driver's licenses when they expired. So they used the old photo. So I think I was like 40 years old. So I look all right there. So keep that in mind. Does the photo resemble the person? I've gotten a lot grayer since then. And then, is it expired? So that's the third thing. That's all we're looking at. Does the name conform? Does the picture resemble? Is it expired? Is it expired past what?
The last general election.
Yeah, which was when?
November of 2020.
I think Tom studied. All right, so the voter must say it, show it, sign it. Those are the 3 steps for the voter, right? Say your name and address out loud, show your ID, sign the poll book, the Badger book. Now, one thing I want to say, you're gonna be like, well, those signatures on that Badger book, they don't look like my signature because it's... Okay, we don't compare signatures in Wisconsin, all right? That's for Georgia's problems, not ours. So we don't compare signatures to the driver's license, right? So if they put an X in the line, you can say, hey, is that how you always sign your name? Yep. Okay, all right. This is for them. You know, I'm not telling you to let them just voluntarily come in and commit felonies, but they sign a statement saying, I'm 18 years old, I'm a U.S. citizen, this is where I've lived for the last 28 days, I'm eligible to vote, I'm not a felon. They're certifying to that when they sign to get their ballot. If they do something wrong and it turns out we find it, Mr. O'Leary can figure that part out. That being said, you know, we want to have some awareness to signs that might scream fraud, right? I mean, there are things to look for, but we don't want to compare signatures. In the Badger book, I will tell you, though, that it's pressure on the machine. So if you're using your finger, apply a nice, even pressure. And if we had to compare the signature, I've got a nice piece of a nice document that I can look at after the fact that it shows criminology points. So whenever you do the the N on your name, you do that N on certain parts, no matter how messy you do the middle, and then there's a finish line for everybody's signature. So criminology points allow us to look back on that, and O'Leary will have what he needs on that. So
Even though the line might not show up in the yellow box, the computer still records it.
So if the line, if like the when you cross your T, if it doesn't show up, it could show up better on the printed image. But you know, if nothing shows up, we want to have them apply some pressure, right? We don't want to just accept a signature that didn't show up on the screen. So we want to have as good as we can, but we also acknowledge that, hey, these are electronic poll books. In the back?
Are the badger books, they sign with their finger, or is there a stylus or something?
There are some styluses. They didn't work very well. They have to get broken in, and honestly, if you just rubbed them on like an oily hand a little bit to give them a smoother, they were kind of sticking and jumping, but I think it was because they were new. So if you can get them to, you know, kind of get worn in, they'll work better as we use them.
Well, how do you keep things clean if everybody's signing on the same screen?
In your PPE bag is a big baggie of the alcohol wipes that you, when you go to get a shot and they open the little thing and they the little square wipe, there's lots of wipes. And so you lay some wipes out on the table, and if a voter wants to use the wipe before, they're welcome to. Otherwise, the people working the Badger books will be doing that very often.
And so who's using the keyboard?
Just the worker. Just the worker. Yeah, the keyboard and the mouse and the scanner, that's just the worker. The only interaction that a voter's going to have is to sign their name on the screen. Yep. All right. So that's the 3 things of photo ID, and just be aware of the impact that you could be making on somebody by asking them to change their physical appearance to accommodate those requests. So yeah, never ask somebody that's wearing something on their head to remove it if it's for religious reasons. You know, that never, if somebody comes in with a walking stick and they've got on great big black glasses, there's probably a high likelihood that person needs them in order to get around for their vision or lack of vision. So just be aware. If they don't have their photo ID, this is the part I like to say, yes, they can vote provisionally if they're already registered, only if they're already registered and they don't have their photo ID. They can vote a provisional ballot. But it's going to be, especially if it's like 1 in the afternoon, we got 7 hours to be open, let's see if maybe they can go home and get it, or they can find it before 8 o'clock. Otherwise, they can vote provisionally. If the voter wants to vote provisionally, get the chief inspector. We've got a nice little folder with all the steps in it, and there's a letter that goes to the voter on how to get to me by Friday at 4 o'clock. A provisional ballot is basically saying, I don't have all the tools I need today to cast a ballot, but I want to cast a ballot, and if I can get it to the clerk by Friday at 4, then they'll count my ballot. But that's only in the case of no photo ID, right? Voter does not have acceptable photo ID, or the voter is an election day registration and is unwilling or unable to provide their driver's license number. So maybe they're using a passport book for their photo ID, and they're using a utility bill for their proof of residence because they lost their driver's license playing pool last week. So if they know they're going to get it, they're going to go to the DMV tomorrow and they're going to bring that ID to me, then that's okay.
We had a couple who had just had a house fire, like days before. They didn't have
a house fire. I mean, that's a very valid reason to do a provisional ballot. But what I really want to hammer home here is sometimes we look at the provisional ballot as the Hail Mary, and it's not that. Right? It's not you don't have everything you need, so we'll just do a provisional ballot. It's this or this only. So you either don't have an acceptable photo ID today, or you're an election day registration, you're unable and unwilling. That's it. No other options, right? So I know we can get creative with ways to try to help a voter, and I love that you do that, but that's not an option. Yeah.
Can they have a photo of their ID on their cell phone?
Can they have a photo of their ID on their cell phone? Well, why not? Why not?
It's not
Could be
considered a
somebody
legal.
else's.
Photoshop.
Could be some, yes.
Take a picture, video.
Can they have a photo of their proof of residence?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not proof of ID.
That's not proof of ID. You're right, but it could be used for both. Does the name conform? Does it look like them, and is it expired? I mean, so here's the deal, right? So there's Photoshop, yeah, there is. But there's also people that run these little side businesses that make fake IDs. Did you not go to college and get that little, I mean, who didn't get those, right? So it can happen no matter what. I don't think you're going to see that. If you're seeing it for proof of residence and that they're using it for that, yes, take it electronically. We prefer to have the in-person physical, we prefer to have the physical one. But if they had a house fire and they didn't have anything and that's all they had was on their photos in the cloud, I'm probably going to give you permission to accommodate that voter. Because we can prove that they have an extenuating circumstance that needed accommodation.
So I could pull up my electric bill on my phone
Yep,
Or your bank
and
account.
have a passport,
Oh, sure.
yep,
and we're all good.
and you're all good. Yep, you bet, yeah. Yeah,
Couldn't we used to use the bank statement as proof of residence, and that would be on people's phone?
a bank statement could be on people's phone and they could use that. Yep, that's another one.
So proof of residence can be on there?
Yeah, electronic proof of residence is allowed, yes. For photo ID to prove you are who you are, because, right, proof of residence is when you're registering and you're proving you live where you live, right? Proof of residence is I live where I live. Photo ID is proving you are who you are. So they're two separate beasts proving two different things, okay? Did I hear my name? All right. Two election inspectors initial the ballots. I will tell you that in the last couple of challenges that I've had with challenging ballots, this has come up, and boards of recount have been asked to not count ballots with poll worker errors on it, which I thought was unreasonable. So if you forget to sign, initial the ballots, they could have an impact. So I'm just asking you to please be aware, make sure that you're doing that. Be very, very careful not to coach a voter. Coaching means, well, don't vote for Godlewski, she dropped out. That's coaching. We can't coach. You can tell them, this is a partisan primary, pick a party, stay in your party, and vote for individual candidates, because that's instructions that are printed on the ballot. But as far as what you saw on the news is not allowed, okay? You do have privacy folders available if people request them. I'm not requiring that you use them. I mean, if somebody can walk to the machine and put it in without, having it, that's fine. All marked and unmarked ballots must be secured, okay? Never leave that box of ballots over at the chief table unmanned. I prefer they be under the ballot table in a box with a lid on them. And that, no, you never have that table empty, okay? Make sure if they make a mistake, you're going to log it on the incident log, and then you're going to say, voter received second ballot. If you can say voter number 12 second ballot, voter number 12 third ballot, that's better. I don't necessarily need you to say Tom second ballot, Tom third ballot, but if we know the voter number, easier for me to explain to an attorney. Easier for me to match up the ballots in the spoiled envelope. You have a spoiled envelope for them. You don't need to rip the ballot up in a whole bunch of pieces. Just rip the top corner and put it in there. You can make a big X on the front of it if you want to, just to make sure that it doesn't work. All right. Curbside voting is not drive-through voting. You've asked me this a lot. If my dog's in the car and it barks a lot, is not a reason to call in curbside voting. If I've got... Now, here's one. I suffer from high anxiety and things like this.
It's a disability.
Right? You should probably accommodate that voter for being unable. It's a disability. So what we think is a disability might not be a disability to you, but it's a disability to that person. And if somebody comes in and they've got a dog on a leash, and that is their support animal, Well, let's just not make a big deal of it, okay? Let's just help them get their ballot cast and get them through. But if they cannot get out and we need to do curbside voting, all right, here's your big 3 things, right? 2 people every single time, never 1 person. If you can get a Democrat and a Republican in a partisan primary to go outside, that is the preference. In the spring primary, I don't care, just grab 2. But in a fall election, to avoid any sense of whatever we're calling it, if you can get a Democrat and a Republican to go out, that's all the better. Make sure that that voter sticks around until you put especially in this election, that you put the ballot in the machine and the machine takes it. Because wouldn't that be a shame if you went through all the work to do a curbside ballot and then the machine rejected their ballot and they were already gone? Okay? Make sure they stick around. You can just stick your hand out the window, give them a thumbs up, and they can be on their way. If they need to update their registration due to an address or name change, they're going to have proof of residence. But remember, our Badger books can't go outside for them to sign, so you're just going to mark. There's actually a little box on these Badger books that say it was a curbside voter, and it's going to actually make that mark and notation automatically for you. Nathan says, those things are awesome, and I believe that they are too. So this is your curbside voter here, and what it's going to do is say ballot received at poll entrance, right? It's going to make that notation for you the minute you click the box. You have a defective ballot envelope and a spoiled ballot envelope. The spoiled ballot is for the people that made a mistake and need a second and a third. The defective is if that curbside voter drove away and you need to remake the ballot for any reason. I don't expect you to have a lot of remakes in that area, but here at Central Count, because maybe they had Parkinson's and it was clear to you that they selected a party, but the ink might have run in and the machine wouldn't accept it. 8 o'clock, end of line officer, right? The polls are closed. People can be in the polling places. This is the question that was for those watching the video. Here is the answer to that. The tapes will take up to 45 minutes to run and we'll need paper replacement on this election. The tapes are ungodly long. It took us 45 minutes to run 1 tape in our public test. You're running 2 tapes. So it's going to take a while. So get that started right away and then start sorting your ballots by ward, getting them in a pile by 25 and getting your counts down. And then if you see a tape laying on the floor, it means you got to get up and change the roll. Make sure when you start that printing again that it's printing on the right side. Maybe you put the paper in backwards. Make sure that it's printing before you walk away from it. So lots to remember on there. In the red here, modem the results to the county, right? How do we get graded in election? Is it just by all the extra stuff that we just trained on? Or is it how quickly the media gets our results?
The second.
It's the second. Unfortunately, it's the second. And so modeming those results to the county will get them off our back so that we can finish the real work for the night. Announce the results out loud if there are observers. Diane, did you have a...
Yes, I just want to know, is it going to be 45 minutes for each ward?
No, it's 45 minutes per DS200. Yeah, but you can't do that till after 8 o'clock. So, when we're normally done 8:30, 8:45, you're going to be there well after 9 o'clock at this election. I don't anticipate that in November, but in this election, I anticipate it being later because of the time it's going to take to sort and process. Review ballots for discrepancies, right? Look at your counting votes handout. I'm not going to go through that in detail today because we could be here another hour. But use that as a reference. Take it to the polls so that you can, what if they do this? Well, you have 8 pages of examples there, right? Those examples came from the state. They're not mine, so I didn't make a mistake on them. They came from the state. So if you're going through and looking for discrepancies or write-ins, your options there are very clear. Just about everything that could happen is on that handout. And then complete and sign your return sheets and explain any discrepancies in your vote count. So if your Badger books are not matching the number of ballots you have cast in there, you have to explain that to me. You can't just say, well, we're one off and we don't know what happened. You can't do that. Did you have a question? There was a hand up. Nope? Okay. So you've got to be able to explain that, and that's the beauty of those incident logs. I cannot thank you enough for the incident logs you provided in April. They were beautiful. Keep up the great work. Sort your wards by ward number, place in stacks of 45, record the count on the reconciliation form, go back through, set aside ballots with write-ins, and if you can make this process better, a lot of people pull the oddities out before they make their stacks of 25, probably better than my system. And then you're going to record anything that you need to record, and then beg them by ward, if you will. You're getting the number of wards you have plus a couple in case they don't seal right. So if you can beg them by ward, that would be great. Forms at the end of the night. This is what you chiefs need to, so screen 53, chiefs, please mark so you know that all of those things are coming back to me on election night. There is an end of night order of operations, right? When you go into the DS200, you're going to peel a seal off the top to get in to hit the close polls button. That seal can go right on your incident log so that I have that to compare and show the attorneys our order of operations. Before shutting the express vote off, there's a little sticker here that you would use to take your count. The express vote is just a ballot marker. That is not one that I get all high and worried about you getting. So if you skip that one, you don't get marked down for that. But don't forget to not remove the USB device until all equipment is powered down. I don't know if anybody in this room was a part of the issue, but there was a time when the DS200 was still running and somebody pulled the stick out before you guys were all done, and it wiped out the entire machine, and you had to sit there the entire night and feed the ballots back in, and it was the wee hours of the morning before it got done. So power the machines down before you take any of the USB devices out of it, or we could have trouble. So find your technology people in your polling place and use them. Return those to me. Those are the equivalent of a ballot bag, right? So the physical ballots are going to come back to me, as are the USBs. They have a lot of data on them, and I need them. I like to do some reconciling after they come back to me, long after you guys have gone home. Sign the tapes, put them in the blue security bag. Thumb drives come to me, close down, follow the instructions. Remove your signs. When you're taking the signs off the wall, some of them are reusable, so be careful taking the tape off. Break down tables and return them to the materials to the chief's suitcase. And these are steps that everybody participates in, right? This is not the chief's job. This is all of us. And then your final step, sign the required documents. Secure all unused ballots in the bottom of the DS200. Right? So the tabulator has a door on the bottom when you pull all the ballots out. Once that's empty, then the unused ballots go back in a box and underneath there and locked in. Unused ballots need to be secured. So they're going to go under there, secured in. Used ballots are going to come back to me on election night. Everyone should leave together after all the tasks are completed. Safety, safety in numbers. This is, again, chiefs. Slide 59, what needs to come back to me. Contact me if you have any questions. Slide 60 has my cell phone number on it. If you wake up at 4 in the morning and you're not feeling well and you know you're not going to be there, send me a text. I'll get that text forwarded to your chief as soon as I can. Chiefs, if you're calling your people before Election Day, and I hope you will or have, make sure that they understand what to expect on Election Day. Not all of them have worked, so if you're having a food situation where everybody's going to bring a dish to share, or you're going to have breaks and whatnot, please let them know what to plan for so that they can plan for their day appropriately. Now, Badger books. It is 11 o'clock, which is the time that I have for training. If you are not going to stay and train on Badger books, you don't have to stay. Basically, what I want to cover in 6 slides here is that these are all pieces that the total cost to the city for Badger Books citywide was $164,000. Now, how did I pay for that? Not with your tax dollars. You can thank Mark Zuckerberg. How you feel about that is not for debate, but we did take some grant money, and why not spend that grant money on technology We didn't buy it for drop boxes and things that are not boding well, but we bought the technology with it. We have it. Now we need to take care of it because your tax dollars are already tight, and council members are being asked to tighten even more. So be careful. Skinny up. Yeah, be careful. We've got to be able to unplug these carefully. We need to make sure we take care of the ports. We need to make sure that they go into the box carefully. I've got packing for you to use. That my lecture on this is that we're only going to have these as long as we take care of them. The Badger books, they have a very specific order of operations. This is what it will do and won't do. So let's not get, too wrapped up in it does everything, because it doesn't do everything. It checks in a voter, it'll register a voter, it'll record an assister, it'll record a curbside, it'll help voters understand more complicated ballots, and it'll note typos. Now, if my middle initial on my name in the poll book is wrong, you don't have to re-register me. If you just say add name change, there's a notation where you can say misspelling, and you can say should be R instead of P. And then I'll get that note in my upload, and I'll fix it for the next election. So that's kind of cool. It will not tell you when voters are ineligible. That's why you still need the book. These don't connect with the Department of Correction or the courts. It will not record incidents. That's why you need an incident log. It will not record provisional ballots. It will not track observers, spoil or remake. It will not assign new addresses in the city until they're entered, right? So if we've got a new development that just went up and there's a new street name and that person is registering for the first time, it might not be in the Badger book just yet. I'd have to add it. So you'd add the address in the registration, and then I would confirm it and make sure that it gets in there for the next election. And then it's not going to check against a student listing, which we don't deal with here. I'm going to stay as long as you want to stay to check in voters. I'll help you register a voter. I'll help you change a voter's name. Whatever it is that you want to do on the Badger books. The rest of you, thank you for your service. I know I kept a lot of time for you here today, but this is a really important election, and I know that as election tension is rising, I felt it was important to have Sergeant Perkins here to kind of help you with some tools to do that. So I know it took a little longer than normal. I don't anticipate November being a long one. So thank you, and I'll see you Tuesday.